What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. This is just my rant video, or just a discussion video about the sets in the game. There's like a million sets in the game now, but basically it's all about them nerfing to the ground or making extreme adjustments to sets in the game that you have to farm, and it's a real pet peeve of mine. It's something you have to accept, unfortunately, as once something becomes good or well known, then it's probably going to get the nerf hammer, particularly if it's overperforming. But sometimes I find this can be a little unfair. I mean, for instance, I did farm, I think it was a year or two ago now, I farmed the Calorian's Legacy, which was a really highly sought after ganking set in Fang La, which was an absolute nightmare as the dungeon's super long. I was just farming it on normal, but it probably took me like 30-40 runs to get the the particular items of the set that you wanted. And by the time I'd done it, I think it got a nerf. It's still usable, but again, I can see players' frustration, because the difference is if it can be crafted or it can be bought, then to be honest, if they nerf a set, it's not as bad, because you still have to pay for the sets, obviously, with gold or whatever, or sometimes you'll be able to craft them yourself or get someone to craft them for you. If they nerf them sort of sets, it's not as big as a deal, because normally it's just gold. Even though gold is still time, farming sets in dungeons can be extremely time consuming, particularly if you've got no help. And in particular, I would say the worst ones would be the Infinite Archive or a trial set. I think I did farm another trial set back in the day, which was in Hellra Citadel. I think it was one of the DPS sets, and then they did nerf that as well. I think it did come back. But again, my point basically is that farming a set requires a lot of time, and a lot of players don't have tons of time, and it can go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like I farmed the Talk Lead. God forbid if that ever gets nerfed, because that took me ages. But this is what puts me off farming for sets that are in arenas and dungeons, and in particular, trials or the Infinite Archive, because they just take so long to get. They can take weeks and weeks of play, and then you finally get it together, and then they just nerf it into the ground. So it's just basically a rant. Obviously, you have to bear in mind that if you are going to devote loads of time to farming a set, and it's a highly sought after set, there's a good chance it's going to get nerfed. So you have to bear that in mind. And is it worth your time against a possible nerf? So this is why I tend to run some of my builds, or more of my builds, as much as I can, without running dungeon sets if I can. I know this particular video is showing me running a dungeon set. I think it's Flame Blossom. But yeah, I do use them now and again, but I just wouldn't use them all the time and be totally dependent on them. I prefer overland sets that you can just buy, or crafted sets that you can just make, as it's just so much easier. And if they do get nerfed, it's not really wasted too much of my time. Because this is the problem with this game. It's just it can be a massive time sink to get the sets that you want. Whether this is right or wrong is obviously up for discussion. But yeah, I can definitely see a lot of players' frustration. It is very, very frustrating when they nerf something that you've spent so long to farm for. And don't worry, I haven't forgot the older players as well. This is even during when things can be transmuted and you've got the curation of the drops. All this before, like, I remember the days with Maelstrom Arena, when people had to farm the actual traits, not just the weapons, you had to farm the traits as well. So you could just keep getting the same one over and over again. It wasn't even curated, so you could just keep getting, say you wanted the Maelstrom bow, you would just keep getting a powered restoration staff over and over and over again, and you just had to run it hundreds of times before you could even get the actual item you want in the correct trait. So to be fair to Zos, they have made it easier because of the curation, and also you can transmute things into the correct trait. You can just get the right item and then just transmute it into the correct trait. So to be fair, they have made things a bit more fairer and easier. But that doesn't still take away, it's still a massive time sink. So I think it should be illegal. Well, maybe not illegal, but I just think they should just be a bit more careful when they nerf dungeon sets. And we should also be a bit more careful when it's a highly sought after set. And you know it's overperforming. Deep down, you know it's too powerful. And it's being a bit strong and you're thinking, oh, maybe should I? You've got to think, all right, I'm going to farm that set. But if I farm that set, I've got to be having the back of my mind that this might get nerfed. So is it worth my time and energy to farm this set if there's a high probability it will get nerfed? So, for instance, the latest nerf was the Dragon Knight set in the Infinite Archive, which was overperforming. I don't think it's received a massive nerf, though, but it has taken a hit. And I just feel like a lot of people spent a lot of time trying to farm that set because it was highly sought after. A lot of Dragon Knights were using it. And then just to completely gut it, not to mention, let's talk time frame, like it wasn't even out that long, it was like a couple of months. And then they've already nerfed it into the ground, or not into the ground, but they've gave it a nerf. And this is my issue. I think at least let players have it for a bit longer, unless it's like super overperforming. I know it was very strong. I'm trying to think of other examples as well. Like again, the Tarnished Nightmare, that was one that was really overperforming. Doesn't hit super hard in my opinion, but it's just more that instant burst, which was dealing a lot of instant damage very fast, very hard to react to. But that lasted at least, 5 or 6 months, maybe a little bit longer before it finally got a nerf. But again, I farmed that. That took me weeks and weeks to farm the correct weapons and stuff. Particularly the weapons and jewellery are really tough to get hold of because they only drop on the end boss or chest, which you never barely see in a dungeon. So, I'm a little bit mad about that as well. But to be honest, I could see that one coming as well. The Tarnished one was probably overdue because almost 9 out of 10 Nightblades were using Tarnished. I've used it on a few builds. It wasn't my favourite set, but it was definitely a good set. And it will still be used. It's still just received a nerf. But if they completely gutted things, that is when it's a big no-no for me. So that's what I'm trying to say when I say illegal. If it's a really, really good set and it's nerfed to a massive amount, like if they really make it so it's completely useless, then that is when I'll start to have a bit of an issue because it's people's time that's been wasted. If they make adjustments and it's still usable, then that's not too bad. Now I'm trying to think of an example where something's been nerfed and just crushed into the dust and someone's really farmed it. But particularly, I think Veteran Trials would be the absolute worst, trying to get perfected gear and then them suddenly nerfing a perfected gear set that someone spent a load of time trying to farm. That would be absolutely awful. Not that I've personally done that. I don't think I've got any perfected sets because I don't normally do Veteran Trials, but that would be absolutely awful as well. But yeah, particularly the Infinite Archive, I just can't be bothered to farm the sets that might get nerfed and then you can't do nothing about it. But if it's just a set I just bought on the Guild Trader, it cost me say 100k gold, and then it gets nerfed, I'm not really that bothered because it's just took a bit of gold. It's not really took much time. I mean, the argument is that it would take time to get the gold, but if you already have the gold anyway, say from just selling a random item and you've made a bit of gold, or crafted is the best as well. But yeah, just maybe they should just be a little bit more careful with nerfing sets that have to be farmed because it's an absolute pain. And I always dread it as well when there's a new set on the block from a new dungeon and then I'm thinking, should I farm this or not? Because if I farm it, will it get nerfed? That is the risk you take, and that's the risk we all take because you are at the mercy of a nerf. So it's basically the video done in a nutshell. Just let me know your comments and your opinions on this matter. Should sets that have to be farmed, should they be a little bit more gentle with nerfs? or should they still be super aggressive and it's your choice to farm them and you're just taking that plunge and that risk? Drop this video a like, guys. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.